Good evening. Welcome to the February 14th, 2022 Troy City Council meeting, probably your worst Valentine's night ever. We are very honored this evening to have Reverend Ginger Luke from Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation to do our invocation. So please rise for the invocation and remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance after. Reverend, welcome.
Thank you. In the name of all that is sacred and holy, let us pray. We are thankful for the people of this council, for the time and energy they offer for each of us in this community. We are thankful that they attend to the minute details and to the expanse plans of the future. We are thankful that they are able to hear the many diverse voices of this community and to respect them all. May they receive of patience, discernment, wisdom, and compassion. And may they begin this evening holding the well-being of all of us in their hands and in their hearts. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We were supposed to have Cub Scout Pack 1705 from Hill Elementary School tonight to do our Pledge of Allegiance, but they've had to reschedule. So if you were following along and wondering what I was doing, that was that. So the February 14th, 2022 Troy City Council meeting is now officially called to order. I'll ask for the roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here. We have a quorum present. I'd like to move that we hereby excuse the absence of Councilmember Ellen Hoderick for being out of the county and excuse the physical presence of Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Ann Erickson Galt, who will be joining us by Zoom but is unable to attend in person this evening from the regular City Council meeting of February 14th, 2022.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we excuse those two council members as just read into the record. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. And per our Troy City Council rules, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt will be able to participate in discussion, but she will not be a voting member this evening. First up, our certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 3 this evening. First is C1, a proclamation to Max and Sophia Pollock for organizing holiday food drives to feed the needy. So I'll ask Max and Sophia to join me at the podium. I'm going to take this off to read. I had a good opportunity to speak with Max and Sophia out before the meeting, and I'm very excited to present this proclamation to both of them tonight. I know they've already had some media attention as it relates to this awesome thing that they've done, but now they're here and we get to celebrate them as well. So this is a proclamation celebrating Max and Sophia Pollock for organizing holiday food drives to feed the needy, and I'm going to go ahead and read this into the record. Whereas Troy residents Max, who's 8 years old, and Sophia Pollock, who's 10 years old, are 3rd and 5th graders at Hamilton Elementary School, and they were truly in the Christmas spirit in 2020 and 2021. And whereas in 2020, Max and Sophia, when traveling throughout the Metro Detroit area, saw people on the side of the road that did not have food and were homeless, and they wanted to find a way to help them. And whereas Max and Sophia had the idea to start collecting food for the homeless, so they started by making flyers and distributing them throughout their neighborhood in December of 2020. Mom Amy and Dad Todd, who are out there with their cameras fully going, agreed to have their home serve as the drop-off location with a collection box on their front porch. In 2020, the brother and sister team collected 2,000 pounds of food that they donated to Neighborhood House in Rochester. And whereas from December 11th, 2021 through January 7th, 2022, Max and Sophia again spread the word with flyers that they distributed in and around their Long Lake and Coolidge neighborhood about their holiday collection for the homeless. They asked for non-perishable food items, baby food, formula, and diapers. They were even spotlighted on Fox 2 TV, which greatly helped their collection efforts. And whereas this year's collection, 1,672 pounds of food, was donated to St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank in Detroit. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy hereby applaud and sincerely thank Max and Sophia Pollock for organizing a 2020 and a 2021 holiday food drive to help those in need. And be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy invite all residents to recognize and celebrate the generosity and the dedication of Max and Sophia Pollock, true heroes in our Troy community. So this proclamation is presented today, the 14th day of February, 2022. It's signed by myself as the mayor, and all members of City Council have signed it also. You're gonna have to take turns displaying it somewhere in your rooms or in the house. Mom and Dad will have to help with that. But I'm gonna present it to both of you. Maybe you both can hold it. And we're gonna applaud for you and thank you. So Max is quite the talker. He's just going to say a quick thanks to everybody. Max, go ahead.
Thank you for everybody who donated to our food drive. It really helped us and the homeless people.
Thank you. That was not what I was doing when I was 8 or 10 years old, I'll tell you right now. Thank you, Max and Sophia and family, for being here. It was really important that we could celebrate your good deeds. Next up is C2, an update on recent Oakland County grant received by the Stage Nature Center and Troy Nature Society. And we're happy to see Dave Lambert and Stage Nature Center Executive Director Carla Reeb come forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the City Administration. On behalf of the Troy Nature Society, I'd like to announce that the Society has received funding to provide complimentary nature-based mindfulness programming at the Stage Nature Center through the end of October of this year. As you know, the Oakland County Executive and Board of Commissioners recently allocated $10 million in American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to establish the Oakland Together Mental Health and Wellbeing Nonprofit Grant Program. The county developed a program in response to the acute mental health challenges faced by many during the COVID-19 pandemic and designated that the funds be distributed through Oakland County nonprofit organizations that offer mental health and well-being support services. The Troy Nature Society has been awarded $112,360 from the Oakland Together Grant Program for its newly developed Using Mindfulness in Nature to Combat the Effects of COVID-19 initiative. This initiative has been developed by the Society in cooperation with 3 local healthcare systems to provide complementary nature-based mindfulness activities for individuals and families at the Stage Nature Center. The programs offered will address critical mental health and/or behavioral health needs of our community and is geared towards reducing the effects of stress, anxiety, depression, and isolation on individuals due to the pandemic. The initiative is an important extension to the vital nature programs the Society currently offers at the Stage Nature Center. With the inclusion of nature-based mindfulness programs into our current program offerings, the organization will continue striving toward our vision to develop and provide innovative programs from current research that benefits individuals in our community. As you may know, at the height of the 2020 pandemic, this project was envisioned due to its precise alignment to the organization's mission and vision. Throughout the last 2 years, the Stage Nature Center has proven to be a valuable retreat for those seeking refuge from stress, anxiety, and self-isolation attributed to the recent pandemic. The number of daily visitors to the Nature Center has more than tripled since the pandemic began. Several hundred guests walk nearly 2 miles of the trails daily while observing wildlife and natural foliage. families and individuals enjoy the beauty and serenity of our unique 100-acre preserve in various ways. Even as the COVID-19 vaccine becomes more widely available, the devastating emotional impact of the pandemic will continue to ripple long-term through our community in the form of stress, depression, and anxiety. This project is designed to expand on the Society's current nature-based program offerings with mindfulness programming offered as an active and constructive response to the effects COVID-19 has had on the mental health of Oakland County area residents of all ages. Troy Nature Society Executive Director Carla Reeb has additional details on this important project.
Thank you, Mayor Baker and City Council for giving us an opportunity to provide details on the Troy Nature Society's Mindfulness at Stage initiative. The Society's educational program staff, working in cooperation with mental health care professionals from Beaumont Health, DMC Children's Hospital, and Henry Ford Health System, have developed nature-based mindfulness programming to be offered to individuals of all ages at the Stage Nature Center. Nature-based mindfulness is a term used to describe activities and programs that connect the natural environment with mindfulness or other contemplative techniques. Nature is an amazing and diverse and meaningful mindfulness tool. It has been well documented that the regular practice of mindfulness and meditation is highly beneficial for our mental, physical, and spiritual health. Taking this practice into the natural world outside adds another dimension that an indoor meditation setting simply cannot provide. The effects of meditating in nature can be as immense as they are immediate. Recent research, including large-scale studies, have shown that outdoor meditation practices and mindful group walks in nature can lead to significantly lower rates of depression, less stress, and better mental well-being all around. This project includes the creation of various outdoor education focus areas that will be implemented along the trails of the Stage Nature Center. This vital initiative includes the creation of a podcast along with appropriate web-based pages to be used in conjunction with the project's structured workshops to heighten the participants' mindfulness experience. Over an 8-month period, the organization will offer monthly workshops that will serve approximately 1,400 individuals of all ages with complementary nature-based mindfulness programs designed to combat the emotional effects of COVID-19 and provide supportive activities for improved mental and physical health. Workshops will be conducted in collaboration with mental health care professionals and TNS educational program staff and will include guided activities along the trails of the Nature Center. Individuals who'd like to receive information on upcoming mindfulness workshops are invited to go to the Stage Nature Center's webpage and register to be included on the email distribution list, which will provide details of upcoming complimentary mindfulness workshops. Please visit troynaturesociety.org to register and to receive details of workshops and schedules as they become available. The first workshop is scheduled for Monday, February 28th, and will include a press day to announce this well-being initiative to our community. We wish to thank Oakland County for its Oakland Together grant funds awarded to the Troy Nature Society and for underwriting the cost of providing this complimentary program to our community administered through United Way for Southeastern Michigan. A special thank you to our cooperating healthcare partners of Beaumont Health, DMC Children's Hospital, Henry Ford Health System for contributing program development to this health and well-being initiative. And you all need to sign up at the website.
I love that you brought props. I appreciate that. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Dave. We appreciate everything you're doing at the Nature Center. Obviously, you're a very valuable gem in our community, and we are also very thankful that you took the initiative to seek out these grant funds and to bring a great program to our city and for our residents. Everything you said, couldn't be truer. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good evening. Next up is a vote on a resolution to waive the rules of procedure for the City Council, Rule Number 8, Proclamations and Congratulatory Certificates. I'll move that Troy City Council hereby waives the rules of procedure for the City Council Rule Number 8, Proclamations and Congratulatory Certificates, to approve and present a proclamation to celebrate Black History Month, February 2022, in the City of Troy on February 14th, 2022.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve that vote on the resolution as just read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries, which means next up is C3, a proclamation to celebrate Black History Month, February 2022, and I'm going to read that into the record. Whereas each February, National Black History Month serves as both a celebration and a powerful reminder that Black history is American history, Black culture is American culture, and Black stories are essential to the ongoing story of America, our faults, our struggles, our progress, and our aspirations. Shining a light on Black history today is as important to understanding ourselves and growing stronger as a nation as it ever has been. And whereas that is why it is essential that we take time to celebrate the immeasurable contributions of Black Americans, honor the legacies and achievements of generations past, reckon with centuries of injustice, and confront those injustices that still fester today. And whereas our nation was founded on an idea that everyone is created equal and deserves to be treated with equal dignity throughout our lives. It is a promise we have never fully lived up to, but one that we have never ever walked away from. The long shadows of slavery, Jim Crow, and redlining, and the blight of systemic racism that still diminishes our nation today hold America back from reaching our full promise and potential. And whereas, by facing those tragedies openly and honestly, and working together as one people to deliver on America's promise of equity and dignity for all, we become a stronger nation, a more perfect version of ourselves. And whereas across the generations, countless Black Americans have demonstrated profound moral courage and resilience to help shape our nation for the better. Today, Black Americans lead industries and movements for change, serve our communities and our nation at every level, and advance every field across the board, including arts and sciences, businesses and law, health and education, and many more. In the face of wounds and obstacles that older than our nation itself, Black Americans can be seen in every part of our society today, strengthening and uplifting all of America. And whereas, as we celebrate National Black History Month, let us all recommit ourselves to reach for that founding promise. Let us continue to fight for the equity, opportunity, and dignity to which every Black American is due in equal measure. Let us carry forward the work to build an America that is, in the beautiful words of the poet Amanda Gorman, bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. And whereas we appreciate and honor the countless achievements of Black Americans and continue the efforts to ensure our community is a welcoming and inclusive place that provides just and equal opportunities for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 as National Black History Month. This observance affords a special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor Black citizens who have contributed to the City of Troy, State of Michigan, and the United States' economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And be it further resolved that we invite all Troy residents to recognize and celebrate the vital role Black Americans have played in our nation's history, as well as their outstanding achievements today and into the future. We applaud our own Troy residents and business owners and celebrate their contributions to our community and beyond. This proclamation is presented this 14th day of February 2022, of course signed by myself as mayor and all members of City Council. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. There are no carryover items, so we move on to public hearings. We have one this evening. E1 is a preliminary site plan review, file number SP 2021-0020, proposed Adler Cove, one-family residential cluster, south side of Long Lake, east of John R., currently zoned R1C, one-family residential zoning district. And that'll be introduced by Brent Savanat, our Community Development Director. Hi, Brent.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, City Council. Just wait for this to load on the big screen here. Is the rear light turned off? Yeah, that's a little bit better for those watching from the audience. So thank you for the introduction. Before us this evening is an application for a one-family cluster development. All of you on council have had an opportunity to review and approve a one-family cluster development. So you're aware of what they are. For those watching at home or in the audience, it's a development option available to developers, and it's intended to preserve open space and natural features. And we'll kind of walk through this a little bit here with this application. So in terms of background, the subject parcel is 10 acres in size. It's located on the south side of Long Lake, just east of John R. The parcel is presently vacant. It's got some natural features on it, including floodplain, a little bit of wetlands, and a lot of trees. The property is zoned R1C, one-family residential. Properties on the north, the south, and the east are also zoned R1C, and the uses on the north, south, and east are single-family residential and Larson Elementary School. And to the west, across the drain, is neighborhood node zoning, and it's comprised of the Police and Fire Training Center as well as commercial development. You see the proposed plan overlaid on top of the aerial photograph for the property. Access to the site for vehicles is going to be from Long Lake Road. They're proposing a private road, which is very common for these types of development. And pedestrian access, they're proposing a 5-foot wide sidewalk on both sides of the road, and it will connect to the 8-foot wide sidewalk that's located on the south side of Long Lake. So I mentioned natural features. In green here is a small, this is wetlands B on the topographic survey. It's approximately 0.2 acres. It's regulated by EGLE. EGLE used to be the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. It now stands for Environment, Great Lakes, I forget. There's engineers in the room who can correct me, but it's the new MDEQ. And they are proposing some modification to the wetland boundary, but it's very minimal in terms of what's going to, the impact on that, and it'll have to be reviewed and approved by the state of Michigan. And the red is the boundary of the floodplain that's on the site. We have a really good GIS system, which stands for Geographic Information System. It's basically information that's presented spatially. It's overlaid over the City of Troy aerial photographs. And if you go on our website and you look up the FEMA boundary, it's different than what you see here. What the applicant did is they went to the expense of obtaining a letter of map revision, or LOMR, and they've adjusted the floodplain limits that are a little bit different than what's shown today on our FEMA boundaries online. They believe that this is what reflects the actual floodplain, and they're not proposing any development within this boundary, but this will be reviewed and approved and checked by the city engineering department if it's approved, so that any development on this site does not negatively impact the neighbors. They are required, all developers are required that any development on their parcel does not impact the neighbors, and this is no exception. Those of you who've walked the site or driven by the site, there's a lot of trees on the property, about 450 trees. They provided as part of the application a tree survey, and that survey indicated that many of those trees, or most of those trees, are either in relatively poor condition, they're invasive species, or they're not very high quality. And there's a lot of cottonwoods on the property. For those of you who've ever lived next to cottonwoods, that's not a good tree. But there are 6 landmark trees, which are significant, large quality trees, and 27 woodland trees on the site. They're proposing to preserve 2 of the landmark trees and 9 of the woodland trees. So when you apply the tree protection and tree preservation formula in Article 13, they do not have to, and with the landscape plan that they provided, they meet our tree protection requirements. The applicant proposes a 20-unit site plan. The lots or the units, which is what they're known as for site condominiums, range between 6,900 square feet and almost 14,000 square feet. I realized I was sitting in the chair there. There's a typo here. They submitted a parallel plan which determines the base number of units that's permitted of 16 units, and this incorrectly states that it's 15 units. So their parallel plan shows 16 units, and they're seeking 4 additional units above the parallel plan. And as part of that, the one-family cluster development application, they're proposing to preserve 38% of the site as open space. And that includes a number of those trees I mentioned. And the site plan is in full compliance with the zoning ordinance, except for a handful of decks for units 11 and units 13 through 18, and it's shown in this location to the east of the parcel. So if this were a conventional development, so for example, as proposed in the parallel plan with 16 units, there's a provision in our ordinance, and I'll just kind of summarize what it says here. In section 7.08, raised decks may project into a required rear yard for a distance not to exceed 15 feet, provided that the distance remaining between the deck and the rear lot line is at least 25 feet. So in plain English, the house has got to be set back at least 40 feet from the property line. The deck can be attached to the house, and 15 feet can project into that 40 feet, so that the distance between the deck and the rear property line is 25 feet, okay? What the applicant proposes as part of this, there's a 40-foot perimeter setback requirement. What the applicant proposes is that the homes be 50 feet from the property line. There's a 25%, we refer to it as a collar, open space collar, that's going to be untouched. And the decks will be located a minimum of 35 feet from the property line. So the house is at 50, the deck's going to project 15 feet, which is 35 feet from the property line, but 5 feet of that deck's going to project into that 40-foot required perimeter setback, okay? So they need relief from this requirement. And again, we're only talking about right here. There's a lot of area on the other portion of the site. It's only here we're talking about for a handful of units. So to compare, again, 40-foot setback, 45-foot setback for the building, 25 foot for the deck if it's conventional. This is 50 feet for the building and 35 from the property line for the deck. So even though they need administrative relief, it's still further away than had it been developed conventionally. It's a very long-winded way of saying that, but it's important that it's clear. The one-family cluster option provides regulatory flexibility, and it does that because this option is all about flexibility. In an attempt to preserve open space and preserve natural features, it provides flexibility. And what this says is, City Council, based on a recommendation from the Planning Commission, may waive front, side, rear, and perimeter setback provisions, provided the applicant has demonstrated innovative and creative site and building designs and solutions would otherwise be unfeasible or unlikely. And it does say based on a recommendation from the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this application, including this relief. So in terms of housing, you can't see it very well here, but at the bottom, the housing options range from as low as 1,990 square foot ranches with optional second floors to the high end, which is 2,900 square feet colonials, two-story colonials. And these are somewhat smaller than some of the homes that Mondrian has developed in other developments, one-family cluster developments in the city. Again, it's a 10-acre site, preserving 3.8 acres, which is 38% of the total site. And the open space is provided along the floodplain in the southernmost portion of the site and in that collar that I talked about earlier. These are the standards in section 10.04. You've seen these before. I'm not going to read them, but there's a number of them. And this application meets a number of these standards. So in terms of overall summary, what City Council is required to do is determine if the requirements are met to qualify for a cluster development option, whether the required standards have been met, and whether the additional number of units, 4, is commensurate with open space being preserved. So, and as for those 4 units, again, that's a typo, those 4 additional units, they propose 38% open space, they propose protection of the wetland, protection of floodplain, that open space collar, and woodland protection of some of those trees that I mentioned. Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item December 14th, 2021. They recommended approval 8-0, and they specifically recommended that approval of that perimeter setback flexibility that I mentioned. And Planning Department recommends approval of the development, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate the presentation, including some of the historical explanations. It's always good to have. Any questions from council before we get to a discussion? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Salvadon, for that great explanation. And I did watch the Planning Commission meeting, which was really helpful to kind of see the deliberations around it. So I'm well aware of the issue around needing to, or the recommendation to provide relief on those setback requirements for the decks. I'm aware that it stems from Park View, the other Mondrian property where there are issues where they have sought to go to ZBA to be allowed to be able to build those decks, and it hasn't been granted. This makes complete sense. I understand perfectly that actually by granting a cluster as opposed to the conventional, there's actually 10 extra feet when you add in the collar. So it makes perfect sense what's being proposed. The only question is, does this create any issues for Parkview in the sense that there's anger? I know part of it was it just, for whatever reason, there wasn't that foresight. It wasn't included when that cluster was brought forward, but is there any liability or any issues that we might face from folks from Parkview if we grant this and they say, well, we're trying to get some relief from ZBA, we're not getting it, and wondering how that might work.
So I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to touch any question related to liability. We have the city attorney sitting here, but I look at this as we learned from the first few, and we've tried to fine tune this. So we learned from other developments and how to make these become better and better. And the plan before you this evening is a result of learning and trying not to duplicate things that we've done in the past that maybe we could have done better.
City Attorney Blue?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Just to answer your question, for each particular development that is proposed, they need to meet the standards of 1004E5, which again, Director Savinant had up on the screen, but it does allow for regulatory flexibility if the applicant has demonstrated an innovative and creative site and building designs and solutions that would otherwise be unfeasible or unlikely absent flexibility. So each site for cluster development, you would need to determine whether or not the applicant has met that criteria. And you may decide in this particular case that they have. The other one, it wasn't before you, but that may have been a different result had that been presented to you. So again, each one is on their own merits.
Thank you. A couple more questions. So I know it was a recommendation at the end of the Planning Commission meeting by Carly Wortman for the applicant to be able to give us more details on the actual building materials, what percentage would be hardy board versus what percentage brick. I'm not sure if I missed it. I tried to read it carefully, but is that somewhere in here? Is there more information on that?
I don't know if it's in there or not. A representative of the applicant is here this evening. They can go into more detail on that.
Sure, absolutely. That's fine.
Additional questions? Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, did you have any questions? All right. Councilmember Brooks.
It's okay. Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Mr. Savinant. Thank you so much for the presentation. So you said in this cluster development, these houses can range from ranch style to as large as 2,900 square foot. And it's really going to be up to the developer, is that correct, as to the mixture and how that will, I think that I watched as well the Planning Commission meeting, and they said it's kind of driven by the market. But we won't have any control or anything like that, correct?
If you approve it as proposed, the developer can do anything in that range of units, from 1,900 to 2,900 square feet.
Okay.
So if all they get is a request for 2,900 square foot homes, that's all you're going to see there.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've asked that question probably every time Mondrians come forward, and they always say, people don't ask for the ranches, they ask for the colonials, which it's a question that we get asked a lot by residents because they're going to see this development go up, and they're not obviously buying the homes there. So I think, as an aside, we should always be thinking about, on council and in the planning department, are there additional ways we can encourage developers to only do ranches, or to find a way to maximize everything for us and for them? I always plant that in your head. I know that's not the proposal before us, but since it came up.
So based on the provisions that we have at our disposal today, our hands are kind of tied, but certainly there are things we can do moving forward at future meetings to not only encourage, but mandate.
Sure.
If we choose
I don't like to use the M word.
If we go down that track.
All right. Any other questions? I have a couple, I think. But we talked a little bit about the decks, and I'm uncomfortable talking about the other development in conjunction with this one. As long as City Attorney Bloom, I just want to make clear, if we do approve this tonight, there's not going to be consequences related to that other development, or it passes your city attorney test as something that's feasible and acceptable?
I can't say that the residents wouldn't be angry. They may be angry. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But what I can speak to is that you would evaluate each one as it's presented to you, and this is presented to you. You decide on the merits whether or not this applicant in this particular case has demonstrated the criteria that I had previously read.
Okay, and I hesitate to ask, but I'm going to. The other property that this could potentially relate to, are there any administrative ways for them to seek that same clarification or answer that question now, or have they?
Not at this point, no, because it's already been developed.
It's already been developed.
Constructed, and yeah, they went to the ZBA, which is an opportunity for them to grant relief. The ZBA determined that they had not satisfied the criteria where there was a hardship, and so they denied their requests.
Okay. Okay. My other question is much more fun, I guess, or simple. But I think there's a proposed wood chip path going from the cul-de-sac, what looks like into the Larson Middle School property. Is that for sure going to happen? Is that something the school district is happy with and wants? And what is the access point to Larson Middle School? What happens when they get to that end of the wood chip path?
I'll defer that to the applicant as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Salvador? Shall we have the applicant come forward before I open the public hearing? And who's with us tonight, Brent?
For sure, Jim Eppink. He's a landscape architect representing the applicant.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council. Mr. Stavin, thank you for your review. Really, what we'll do is, rather than go through everything, because I think Brent did a great job, and it sounds like everybody has looked at the Planning Commission, is answer some of your questions and be available for some additional. So in terms of architecture, it certainly is our hope, Monterey Properties' hope, on every development that there's a mix of housing, and we design the homes, to be first class at every size. And so it's our hope that there is a mix, and with that ranch home, there's some options to have second floor additional bedrooms, so it could, grow up to 2,200 square foot and still be a moderate size home. In terms of architecture, they're all quality all the way around. Brick, all four sides on the first floor, hardy plank siding on the second, and wood trim. So all, very substantial materials and appropriate for, the quality of Troy and the homes that are built here. Yes, at the end of the day, all homes are market-driven, but as I say, we certainly are designing them so that they're all very, very attractive. We have no lost leaders or anything like that being offered here. The deck, it sounds like, it is a little bit of a mathematical juggernaut a bit, but really the way we look at it is, and why we like the cluster option as a whole, is because it provides so much community open space within the development and the homeowners association, as opposed to privatizing it. So on the west side, there's a substantial amount of community open space because of the drain. On the east side, we do have that 25-foot buffer that in a conventional neighborhood really would be privatized. So not only is the home and the deck a greater distance from the neighbor on the east, but it actually is not privatized, so by default, one homeowner can't start to encroach on it and mow in it. It's always going to be a nice natural open space. So we clearly we're further away, but I think more importantly, it really provides an opportunity to preserve that landscape. The wood chip path, yes, we absolutely are putting that in. What's interesting about this property is right now there are an awful lot of natural trails or trails that people use that go along the drain and kind of currently connect the school. It's our understanding that perhaps even some school teachers use that as a bit of a nature walk and those type of things. We have designed a wood chip trail that it will connect through the trail system back along the river and over to the school. Will it's just shown to go to the school parking lot. We've started to have some early conversations, but really haven't gotten a lot further with the school yet. But we certainly will continue that conversation and make sure it's done in a safe way for students and for the community.
Thank you.
With that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Any additional questions? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Thank you, and thank you for clarifying that on the trail. So I still have the question as I listened to the Planning Commission meeting is, on the one hand, and I think it was you, sir, who spoke. On the one hand, I think there was conversation that it'll be owned by the HOA, the Homeowners Association, and there could be liability if people are on that property. But then I'm hearing now that actually, there may be an attempt to try to facilitate something so the school, Larson, can still use that property. So I'm just trying to understand those two things.
Yeah, and that's a fair question that maybe I don't have a completely thorough answer to. At the end of the day, it is a private neighborhood in terms of an HOA and private land. And like probably every other community, private developed community within the city of Troy and elsewhere, it really is intended to be for the enjoyment of those residents, their homeowners association, and for their liability, their insurance. This is a little unique situation in the sense that it is adjacent to the school, that there are some trails there. I don't think that we're going to advertise, for public use, but certainly if kids live in the neighborhood and take that trail to school, if teachers come out and explore a little bit, I think that has to happen organically and work with, of course, Mondrian initially and then the Homeowners Association. So it's not a rails to trails type situation where the public would be running through it, but it is a unique circumstance next to that school.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
So I did want to follow up on the building materials and sort of some of that percentage. I know you talked a little bit about them. I think my understanding at the Planning Commission was they wanted a bit more detail. And so we know that the cost of building materials of all sorts just keep going. And so to have a clear sense of kind of, your commitment to, and I know everything you do is quality, but to have a sense of really, what that would be and what we can expect to see.
Well, we're committing right now, and certainly in the drawings that'll come through for permitting, that all four sides all the way around the house on the first floor will be masonry, brick, or a combination of brick and stone. So true brick and stone throughout the first floor. In some cases, there's accents that go above the first floor line in terms of masonry units. The second floor, generally speaking, around the entire home will be hardy board siding or an equivalent of that, and actual wood trim. So we're not suggesting vinyl siding or aluminum siding or anything like that.
Thank you.
No further questions then, it looks like? Oh, all right. I'll open the public hearing. There's nobody signed up to speak on this issue, E1, but now's your opportunity. If you'd like to come forward and speak on E1, this proposed cluster development, please come forward. I'm not seeing anybody. I'll close the public hearing and ask someone to move the resolution for discussion. Councilmember Hamilton.
I'll move E1, preliminary site plan review, file number SP 2021-0020, proposed Adler Cove, one-family residential cluster, south side of Long Lake, east of John R., currently zoned R1C, one-family residential zoning district as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve E1 preliminary site plan review, file number SP 2021-0020, proposed Adler Cove one-family residential cluster, south side of Long Lake, east of John R., currently zoned R1C one-family residential zoning district, as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, Councilmember Hamilton.
Sure, thanks.
Thought you were pointing back at me.
No. Yeah, to me, this is kind of the spirit of the cluster ordinance. I mean, by right, without ever coming to city council, they could build 16 units. They could have it 25 feet, the decks be 25 feet from property line. So to me, to preserve 38% open space for to have a more desirable housing product, I'm definitely supporting this. I think this is a good example of why the cluster ordinance is a good thing.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Thank you, Mayor. I know we received some feedback earlier, and I listened to that feedback that came to Planning Commission, some of the residents who turned out. And I just want to be clear, if anyone's listening, is that as much as it may seem that way, this isn't a choice between open space versus development. The reason being is that at the end of the day, this is not our space. We don't own this space. And we believe deeply, I believe deeply in this value of private property. And this is owned by our developer. And really, at the end of the day, it's a question of, is the best way to preserve this land by pursuing this cluster option, which 38% of the land, as we just heard, is going to be preserved. There's going to be some shared open space. And at the end of the day, for me, the big one is the buffering. The buffering between neighborhoods would be much better. And essentially, there's almost around the entire land, there is this buffer of some green space. And to me, that's really significant, and that's important. And this is a sort of development that we're looking for. So I'm happy to support this, and I have no reason why I shouldn't.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say this development tugs at my heart. I've passed by this parcel of land for decades. I remember when there was this house, a very aged house on there that got demolished, 5 to 10 years ago, and just recently there was a very dilapidated outbuilding that just got torn down. You can see deer, all sorts of wildlife on this piece of property that's basically been untouched for many, many years. But as Councilwoman Chamberlain-Crainga said, the matter before council is proceeding with a cluster development or a traditional development. One of the options is not, don't do anything. We cannot deny an owner of the property the right to use their land the way that it's been zoned and to be able to exercise their rights to get benefit from that land. So the matter before us is proceed with the cluster development or that more traditional R1C development. I appreciate Director Savedant walking through the deck situation, because on paper it does look like it's infringing into the property to the west. And you can see on the aerial map that the houses that they're talking about where the decks might start encroaching, the house is right there on the map. And if you walk by it, it's a very lovely house, rebuilt after a very devastating fire not too many years ago. And I had some concerns about whether that infringement would really impact those owners' use of their property, but the explanation of the collar and that extra land really does put that into perspective. So when weighing the option between the traditional route or the cluster route, I really do have to look at, does this preserve as much of the green space that I know I've enjoyed in this area for decades? And to me, the answer is quite clear. The answer is yes. To be able to keep that natural area by the Gibson drain where you do see a lot of animal life and to the southern part of the property where it is pretty densely packed with trees, more quality trees, it is very clear to me that that is the preferable option. I too have concerns about having a larger footprint home on perhaps a smaller parcel of land, but that's outside of our span of control. And certainly when you compare that to what could be there from a traditional R1C, you could run into that situation in that case as well. And so as much as I hate to see that land get developed, I know that progress will move on, that this is the best way for that piece of land to get developed, and I would be supportive of that cluster development.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, I'll say something since everyone else did. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, no, I will also be, I concur with my city council members. I will also be supporting this development. I do appreciate the cluster development. I appreciate the preservation of land. Ideally, I would love to see, more ranch-style homes in that development. But as I do understand and recognize that we don't have control over that, and that it is driven by the market, and you, by right, will have the opportunity to develop what you feel is going to work best for your development. So, but I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness in the development, and I think it will be probably the best thing that we can do for this space.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, sorry, yes. You're not
Okay,
seeing
good.
our
I want to make sure. It's the first time doing this. I wasn't sure if the technology is working. Even though I won't be voting on this, I am happy to hear that my colleagues are supporting this. And this, to me, is what the best thing that we can do to achieve the goal that our residents have repeatedly told us that they want to see, which is preserving green space. This development, definitely there's going to be some trees torn down, and that is something that is sometimes very upsetting to our residents, but there's also going to be trees that are preserved. In fact, there's going to be large spaces of property that are going to remain preserved under this plan. I also appreciate the fact that the traffic study showed that this plan will not have a significant effect on Long Lake traffic. As a former Larson Middle School parent, I know how ugly the traffic can get around that place when parents and buses are coming and going, taking students. So I'm happy to hear that traffic will not be affected. And if I were there voting, I would support this. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt. And appreciate all of everyone's comments. Obviously, we haven't voted yet, but you can see where it's going. I just wanted to make a couple quick points on this. Again, to Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga's earlier comments, this isn't a situation where it's either nothing's going to be built or something's going to be built. No matter what, something's going to be built on this property. And I've been a strong proponent of the cluster development option since it was created. And sometimes I think they've been some great proposals, and sometimes they haven't been so great. I will say I think Mondrian Properties does a good job with our cluster development. I appreciate that very much. I also, to me, the cluster development, in addition to, we focus on what sounds like putting more houses on smaller footprints, and that obviously is a small piece of what happens, but it really is a green space preservation development project. 38% green space preservation versus what could have happened in the by right development it's a big difference. And I know we do take a lot of calls and emails and concerns from residents who just, they're sick and tired of seeing trees cut down, seeing things change in the city from that perspective. And we talked about private property rights and what we can do as a city. This is a tool we have as a city to help encourage and preserve more green space. So I'm thankful to use that tool tonight. I also, I really love, and we don't use this word, it doesn't come up a lot, but the collar aspect of this, this proposal, I think is something that I would like to see. If we're gonna have cluster developments, let's focus on that collar. I think that really helps with the transition between the adjoining properties, and I know every property is unique, can't always be done, but I do think that goes a long way and really helps, and I'm very happy about that. If you could take back to Mr. Maniaci, he would have a very happy Troy City Council and mayor if at some point he voluntarily said, ranch houses will be, we'll guarantee a certain amount of ranch houses. And, I don't have the power to make you do that at this point, but if he's looking for a smile from this council, that might be something to do at some point. Because we do hear time and time again, and he builds quality properties, and there's no question there. And I know it's market driven, and that's how capitalism works, and I'm very supportive of that. But it would be nice. I think those ranches would go very fast, even at a premium. So if you could pass that along. I've said it to him when he was here last time too, but the more we say it, the better. I will be supporting it, obviously, and it's a 10-acre parcel is a large piece of wooded area, even if it's quote unquote junk trees or buckthorn. It will be noticeable for the residents of our city. And I do think this is the best option that we have at this point, and know that we'll have quality development there, and look forward to seeing how it progresses, and also the communication continuing with the school just to make sure everything between liability and use and everything can be as, as friendly as possible, especially when it's been used for so many years in certain aspects. And with that, I will call for the vote.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Not very many of us. Motion carries. Thank you again for coming this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. Thank you. If I may just, you spurred on a note, and I'll certainly take that message back to Joe and his team. Over the last 6 developments that Joe and Mondrian have done in the city of Troy, all 6 of them have been cluster options. Now, when we add this one in, there'll be over about 33 acres of preserved open space because of the cluster option. So, it's getting to be pretty substantial just with Joe and his team, much less the rest of the community. So we enjoy it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. 33 acres is commendable, and we appreciate that effort. That concludes public hearings this evening. Next up is public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have one resident signed up to speak tonight for public comment. I'll remind you, Mr. Dunn, of the rules. You have 3 minutes. The timer will start when the light turns yellow. You have 1 minute left, and when it turns red, that'll mean your time is up. So I will call forward Mr. Stephen Dunn.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I object to the proposed deployment of 5G poles in and about the Buckingham Woods subdivision. I reside in that subdivision, and I'm referring to a memorandum of Mark Miller, city manager, dated February 8, 2022. It says that the proposed small cell locations are based on supply and demand. Demand is high in the residential subdivisions, so locating new poles in the commercial area near Gulfview is not feasible. So in other words, the beauty of the neighborhood doesn't matter. The well-being of the citizens that live there doesn't matter. And the wishes of the citizens that reside there doesn't matter. All that matters is Verizon's business interests. That's all that matters. That's disturbing. The brazen arrogance of that is disturbing to me. And continuing in the memo, it says, Verizon has cooperated with the city's attempts to identify alternate locations that may be less objectionable to residents. Unfortunately, none have been identified. And I would just like to ask, what has the city done to attempt to identify alternate locations for these poles, especially the pole at 3220 Essex, which is practically in my backyard? What has the city done to identify alternate poles, alternate locations? I'd like to know.
This is not a back and forth opportunity for speak. We'll have an opportunity to reply when you're finished.
All right. And then lastly, when is one of the poles going in? When are they scheduled to go in?
Again, it's not a question and answer. We'll have an opportunity to speak when you're completed.
Okay, well, I've completed.
Okay, thank you. Please have your seat. Take your seat. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment this evening. Now's an opportunity for council or city administration to reply. I'm going to go ahead and start. The report itself, which you partially read into the record, Mr. Dunn, and I understand this issue very well, and I've spoken at length in previous meetings about my disgust with how this Lansing statute has been thrown on us and what it's doing to our communities. But I just want to be very clear. The City of Troy cannot do anything further than what it has done. By the terms of the Public Act 365 of 2018, MCL 460.1301 et sec, that's the Small Wireless Communications Facilities Deployment Act. So the work we've done to communicate with Verizon Wireless that's the best we can do. So to answer your questions of, what did we do to try to identify alternative spot, that's not our responsibility, and Verizon's under no obligation to take that from us. Also, the report continues, at this point, the city has exhausted its potential remedies pursuant to Public Act 365 of 2018. Future correspondence should be directed to David Hasslinger via email at david.hasslinger@verizonwireless.com. They're requiring email correspondence so it can be managed and tracked internally. This is a state issue. If you also have concerns, please go to State Representative Padma Kupa and State Senator Mallory McMorrow. They are the ones that potentially could make a difference. I see you shaking your head, and I understand. Recognize we have less influence in this role than they do. It's a state law. Also, please continue to work with Verizon Wireless. As I said before, the fact that they even agreed to meet with the city and have conversations about this is above and beyond what they've done in other communities. So perhaps you'll have better luck emailing them and speaking with them. We continue to be frustrated with it. I'll speak for myself only, I'm sorry. I continue to be frustrated with it, and I don't like that this law takes away any potential rights that we have. I hear your points about the beautification aspect of neighborhoods. I agree with them and agree with what you say on that, but the law coming from Lansing doesn't allow us to stop Verizon from doing this. We have no means to do it. Please continue to reach out to Verizon Wireless. Please continue to reach out to your state representative and state senator. Those are the best options that you have left at this point. And I know that's frustrating to you, but that is where we're at. Any other comment from city administration or city council? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Dunn, you know that, and I see some other neighbors in the audience, is that I know this issue well because it's also my neighborhood. And to be honest, when I saw this memo, the report, and this just for reference to anyone listening, it is under reports 02B, it's Verizon Small Cell Update. So it's a department report. I was surprised. I had, no new updates about what's happening. I didn't know that there had been any other meetings. But I want to explain some of that. Part of this is our charter, which is the constitution of our city, essentially states that no one council member should be more privileged to information of the city than another. And sometimes the best way that our city management to respect our charter, our constitution, is to be able to put a report in our council agenda packet as a way to speak very fairly with each and every person. So I don't think there was any intent to not keep us all abreast of what was happening. So I was surprised too. I did not have any updates, and I was very surprised because I was under the impression or very hopeful that things were looking up. As I read this report, what was clear to me is I felt our city has fought for us. There was a proposal. I don't know, I believe that this was part of our city really advocating to potentially relocate the small cell to a DTE utility pole, which would have been cheaper for Verizon to use an existing pole. But DTE denied that. So I believe that actually our city really fought for us. Our city fought to find some alternative locations within the bounds of the state law that limits what we can do. So they fought for us within the bounds of what was possible. And I would say I am disappointed DTE for saying no. I don't know why. I will have to seek more information of why DTE said no to that. I don't know where that location was. And at the end of the day, I think where the disappointment needs to be projected is Verizon. The Verizon did not respect that this is a location where they're proposing, it is as we know, it's a community gathering space for ice cream socials, for our community to come together, that yes, that is deeply disappointing that there wasn't an ability to try to respect that and try to find another location. But what I would say to Verizon, where I am deeply disappointed, is of the 3 existing cells that exist just on the outside of our neighborhood, so technically not in Buckingham Woods, but 1 on Derby, 2 on Witherby, just outside of Buckingham Woods, and another platted neighborhood, are essentially all on the border of Troy. And if it is true that these reach somewhere between 75 feet to 1 mile, I don't know exactly, and if there's great need in this neighborhood, great need from around those cells, that suggests to me that the neighborhood is also servicing Birmingham, because that would be where it stretches. And I do have that question to Verizon, is why is it you're coming to Troy? We're forced. We have no option. We have to grant these permits to put them along a border to service, yes, our neighborhood, but also Birmingham, part of Birmingham where they're tearing down bungalows and putting up multi-million-dollar homes. And why are they not next to the multi-million-dollar homes? So that is my question, and I will be reaching out to Verizon, because one thing I am honored, I serve on a state board that actually of the Michigan Municipal League that fought this legislation. They fought it hard, they continue to fight and continue to advocate against it. And I will be reaching out, because one thing they have told me is we have a right to transparency, a right to understand from Verizon more about the need, that need of why it needs to be there. So that is what I'm going to be seeking to get information on. Again, it doesn't mean that it's going to change. At this point, probably the only thing that will change it is if there's a campaign to get off Verizon in this neighborhood and probably in Birmingham just next to us. So those are my questions. And it's frustrating. I fought so hard on this, and we all have. And I will continue to fight hard. And let's stay in touch and keep the dialogue open.
Thanks, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crank. I got to comment on a couple of things on that. I appreciate that. I just want to make clear, we task city management with a lot of things, and we don't get real-time updates on a lot of things because that's not our role. So while it may have been a surprise to get the report and the agenda, that's the proper procedure for our council and for our form of government. And I don't want anyone to think who's in the audience tonight or who's listening at home that city management has done anything wrong with that. That is the proper course. And I think your shock and surprise is more at the actual content, not at the procedure, if I can just address that a little bit, because I know that no one in the city management's office, they've gone above and beyond what is typically done in something like this to try and work with Verizon. My anger continues to be not so much with Verizon, but the law in the first place, and how that works. And I hope that we can address that, not from this table, because that's not where it can be changed, but from Lansing. That's why elections matter at every level, not just at the federal level, but state elections matter very much for that kind of thing. Your neighborhood's not alone. Your neighborhood's not alone. This will be an issue throughout our city, throughout our entire state because of this law. And I understand what I hear from the other side, or what I have heard as well. People continue to fight for better, or complain about having better cell phone coverage. And there are parts of our city that don't have great cell phone coverage. And so, I don't paint Verizon as an evildoer necessarily. They're trying to do what they think their customers need. What I do paint as the problem is our ability to work through this process. Again, shouldn't be from this table, because it can't be from this table. And as much as that pains me to say, we need to recognize and respect how it needs to be done and stop taking that issue on ourselves, because we can't do anything about it from this table. And the more we talk about doing something from this table, we run a big risk of giving our residents a false sense of hope. And I don't want that I want the realities of the situation to be very clear, as disappointing as they may be. Not just for us at this table, but for our residents and the residents throughout the city who will be affected by future polls as well. I think that's it. Mr. Dunn left. There are no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. I have no mayoral appointments for boards and committees this evening. We do have city council appointments. Since Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gold is not here, I'll go ahead and move, well, she is here, but on the screen. I'll go ahead and move the appointments of Stephen Sadler and Ray Watts to the Election Commission for the terms expiring January 31st, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Krianga, that we appoint Stephen Sadler and Ray Watts to the Election Commission for the terms expiring January 31st, 2023. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krianga?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. And again, we thank Mr. Sadler and Mr. Watts for their continued service on that important board commission. That concludes city council appointments this evening. Next up are board and committee nominations. I have a mayoral nomination this evening. Anticipation's killing all of you, I can tell. I move to nominate Toby Beekner to the Planning Commission for the term expiring December 31st, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we nominate Toby Beekner to the Planning Commission for the term expiring December 31st, 2023. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krianga?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up are city council nominations. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gold is not here this evening to move resolutions and vote, so we will move on to I3. There's no closed session requested this evening. I4 is a contract extension, concrete slab replacement that'll be introduced by our Public Works Director, Kurt Bovensiep. Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mayor indicated before you tonight is a request to extend the contract for concrete slab replacement for Delisio Contracting. Delisio Contracting has a long history with the City of Troy, as detailed in this memo as best as I could. I think I captured pretty much everything dating back to 2014. Delisio came to the City of Troy and requested to extend the contract with the 3% increase. The 3% increase represents the increase that's being passed on to them by their concrete supplier for materials and wages. I asked, why you're asking to extend the contract at 3% and not just let us put it out to bid and then bid at that 3% increase. And they simply said because there's a cost to that bidding as well. And there's the unknown, and they really like the relationship with the City of Troy. And they've represented themselves very well with the City of Troy. I believe they've always represented the City of Troy's best interest when it comes to dealing with the residents, accommodating whether it be someone with a handicap need, that they need special access during the construction for their driveway. They've always accommodated those types of situations. Outside of what's being proposed and what's detailed in this memo with the financials, as you can see, the 3% increase is still lower than the lowest bid of a 7.5% increase when this was bid out back in 2019. The market analysis, which is very difficult to do because Troy is unique on how we bid our slab work out. We do it as a slab, as a whole contract instead of dividing up each individual line item or task, if you will. So most communities, when they bid out this type of work, it's engineered. They know exactly the quantities. They know exactly that they're going to need this much restoration or this much curb work. Where we're a little bit more reactive, we deal with the PACER rating. We rate our roads every year. Most communities don't, and we react to that PACER rating. So we don't have a real good opportunity to really engineer the project. Which is the reason why we bid it out the way we do. So it is an all-inclusive contract. The traffic maintenance, the restoration, everything's included in the price. Outside of what's detailed in this memo, some operational things, why we're bringing this forward is we're not untouched by the pandemic as the Great Resignation either. We do have a vacant construction management position that would normally be responsible for bidding this work out. We also have a vacant supervisor position that oversees this contract. Fortunately, the supervisor that oversees the slab replacement was promoted to a higher position, so he's still around to train the person behind, but there's still advantage to having a contractor that's familiar with the City of Troy and how we operate as we transition to a new supervisor. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions from council? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kurt. Last year was a great example of how powerful this relationship is for our city. We had, if I recall correctly, I think almost $7-8 million worth of concrete repairs on county roads that we only had to pay, I think, around $700,000 for, because we utilized federal and county and state dollars to do that. So to me, this is a no-brainer. I love the work they've done in John R. I live right off of John R., which was brutal before last year, and it's much improved. So I want to see this. My question was, do we have further work like that coming up, with the county? I'm just out of curiosity, because that was a substantial improvement. It was great to see.
Yes, Mr. Hootery is always advocating for that partnership with the county, and I believe he's on if you have any specific questions for him, but I do know that most of the partnerships are involving asphalt overlays with the county, specifically Livernois Road and some other asphalt projects.
I do see Mr. Hootery has joined us on the screen. Mr. Bruner, would you like Mr. Hootery to speak on this issue? Take it away, Mr. Hootery.
Mr. Bovenseep is correct. On your agenda tonight, there is a cost participation agreement for road work on Livernois Road from Long Lake to South Boulevard. And that is a 50-50 project. It is an overlay project, but a 50-50 project that will take care of a 2-mile section of Livernois Road that would have otherwise not happened until 2025 and run into a conflict with the future Rochester Road widening project. So the county had some extra funds. They called and asked if we would be willing to do a 50-50 with them to take care of that road this summer. And that's the cost participation agreement that's on the agenda tonight under a consent item J05. Other than that, we are doing another project on John R. I don't recall the year it is included. You'll see it in the proposed budget. And then we've got some other joint projects with the county on 14 Mile as well as Maple. So we're picking up the red pieces of county roads that remain, and they actually are all within the proposed 5-year capital plan that you will see here in the next few months.
Thank you, Mr. Hootery. I know if Councilmember Hoderick was here, she'd say she loves how she knows, and we all do, how active you are in seeking out these potential cost-sharing agreements, and you're really on top of it. So thank you for all of that work. And I was actually going to say that during the consent comment, that we got it in early because of Councilmember Hamilton's question. So, any other questions for Kurt? All right. Someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Abraham.
I'll move I-4 contract extension, concrete slab replacement as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga, that we approve I-4 contract extension, concrete slab replacement as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? I'll just say thank you to Delisio. They have a long history in this city, and but to Councilmember Hamilton's point and to everything that Mr. Bovenseep stated in the memo and from city administration, it definitely is they provide a very good service to us in the city of Troy, and I'm thankful that we continue to get them as a contractor. I know there was a question a couple years ago whether we would be able to keep them because of their demand, frankly. They're sought after. So happy to approve this contract this evening. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-5, bid waiver, additional election equipment for new voting precincts, and that'll be introduced by our city clerk, Aileen Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you, we have a request for 6 additional ballot scanners and 3 additional accessible ballot marker machines for new precincts that we're planning on bringing in. As soon as the Election Commission approves the new precinct map, it will be coming to council on the 28th of February. And that will include 6 new precincts and 2 new polling locations. In order to have machines in time for these precincts to be up and running by the August election, we need to order the machines now. So we're bringing the request to purchase the equipment to you before the map, in anticipation that the map would be approved by the Election Commission and then brought to you at the next meeting.
Thank you, City Clerk Dixon. Any questions from council? Someone want to move I-5? Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-5, bid waiver, additional election equipment for new voting precincts, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig and supported by Councilmember Abraham that we approve I-5 bid waiver, additional election equipment for new voting precincts. Any discussion? I'll just say I finally got all the old precincts memorized. You're going to kill me here, but
So did I.
yeah, I know. I'm not alone, I'm sure. So looking forward to seeing those new maps sometime soon, I guess. But happy to support this, of course. It's not only necessary, but I appreciate you bringing the bid waiver to us and getting the timing in so we're fully prepared for the next election. And the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. Next up, I-6, 2022 City Council meeting schedule. That'll be introduced by Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to note that City Manager Miller, as you all know, is out of town. He's in Boston watching his son play hockey at Northeastern University, and Tommy actually scored a game-winning goal on Friday night. So City Manager Miller and many family members are there in Boston. So happy to bring this forward tonight in his absence. We're talking about two different special meetings tonight. The first is similar to something that the Planning Commission did back in November, which is a neighborhood node walk-in talk. And as someone noted, I said in the memo that an example was attached, and I forgot to attach that. So in the questions and answers that were sent to City Council this afternoon, there was an example of the agenda packet from one of the meetings that the Planning Commission conducted. So I believe they did 3 or 4 in November. The idea here is to just do one for City Council and to travel by bus to be able to visit a few different neighborhood nodes and have some discussion. So we proposed starting the meeting at 4 p.m. I understand this is early before the workday ends for a lot of people, but we're also up against when it gets dark and trying to balance that. So that start time is for City Council to determine. It's negotiable, so to speak, within the limitations of sunset. And we've got 3 options, Wednesday, March 9th, Thursday, March 10th, and Wednesday, March 16th, that Mr. Savanda and our planning consultant and others who need to attend this meeting are all available on those dates. So we're asking you to choose one. And then the second meeting is looking ahead to the 2022 City of Troy Advance. We held one last November and have identified 3 Saturdays in November and December that would be good dates to hold that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bruner. Always fun to try to discuss dates from the table during a meeting. I'm going to just start out by proposing, for discussion purposes, that we do Wednesday, March 16th for the walk and talk in the neighborhood nodes. Because of what appears we'd likely have the best ability to have council there, unless I hear otherwise. I think it's important that we're there and we do the best we can to make it work. And then for the advance, those seem so far away. I'm not a fan of November 19th because it's the weekend before Thanksgiving. I think that's not necessarily a great time, depending on what's happening in the world. But for Thanksgiving, so I'd be more favorable for December 3rd or 10th, but probably the 3rd because the 10th gets later as well. So I'm going to move, at least for discussion purposes, that we schedule these 2 special meetings. The first one starting at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, and the advance 2022 City of Troy Advance for Saturday, December 3rd, 2022.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve those 2 dates, and now let's discuss if we need to. Councilmember Brooks.
I think we all are probably going to say the same thing about March 16th. It's CapCon, the Capitol Conference.
Oh.
Yeah, the Capitol Conference in Lansing.
Okay,
15th and 16th. 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 15th and 16
And Wednesday, March 9th is City Manager Miller and I attend our SOCMA dinners. There's one scheduled for right now. So that leaves potentially Thursday, March 10th, where I'm 99% certain at least one of our council members is unavailable to attend that. That leaves us the task of determining whether we want to try to have additional dates brought forward to us, which can be difficult, or if we want to move forward with potentially limited participation. Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga?
So the way I would narrow it down is the least amount of council members who would be missing. Right now, it sounds like March 10th. If there's one council member missing, that sounds better than March 16th. That would have at least 3 to 4 people missing. And
Agree. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have conflict for March 10th. That would be very, possibly I could move it, but it would be difficult because it was an appointment made months ago. I'm not sure if I'll be able to reschedule it. So you're looking at 2 council members that would be gone on March 10th. Even though I'm, again, not there able to vote on anything, I would strongly urge my colleagues to consider getting new dates. Yeah. It's just very, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for me. My March is already largely booked up. So if we could do this in April, it would be so much easier.
Councilmember Hamilton?
How long do we think this will take? From 4 till?
It's anticipated from 4 to 7:30.
Oh, wow. Because I was thinking probably terrible ideas. We could do the same day we have one of those budget sessions, but if it's going to be that long, no, that wouldn't work. Yeah, I'll support. I'm fine with December 3rd for the advance, but yeah, I'll be at MML as well for the 16th, and I'd like to see everyone be there for this. I think we should look for another date.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga?
I just wanted to reference the second part of the question around the advance, and that's great that we're thinking about that date. So my strong preference would be November. I'm going to just say that as a mom, if you're a mom out there, a woman, when it comes to December, you know you're doing all the Christmas cards, you're buying all the gifts, you're planning all the holiday parties. So December is just not a great time for me. I would prefer November 19th.
Hey, dads do those things too, Rebecca. So dates are hard for us to schedule from the table. I'm wondering if there's a system that perhaps we could use via polling online or something. I know obviously with the advance for neighborhood nodes, and I don't know about Open Meetings Act potential, but for the neighborhood nodes, it's not just us, it's also planning and Carlisle Wortman. I know that's something that needs to be looked at. It sounds like Brent and Bob, we need some different dates for the neighborhood nodes for sure. I'm a strong proponent, like Councilmember Hamilton, that all of us should be there, or at least have the opportunity to be there because of the importance of these neighborhood nodes, this master plan discussion, and what we've been dealing with for the past several years. So I would really try to, if we could accommodate everybody, recognizing we have budget special study sessions in April as well, and there's no great time to add a meeting, but you came up to the podium. Did you have something to add?
Just a question, and not a commitment, just for optional times and dates. What about an early Saturday morning? Is that potentially on the table? If we start early and get us out of there before lunch so we can get on with our day, can we look at that as a potential option?
Is there a consensus for that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine, yeah. City Attorney Bloom?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to mention, I know that Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt had, recommended April. I just wanted to remind you all that the master plan, this really can't move forward until you guys have that session, and then there will be some time after that as well, because there are a lot of steps that have to occur even after this meeting. So again, if there is anything that can be scheduled, I certainly recommend that it be earlier rather than later.
Thank you for that reminder, City Attorney Bloom.
Yeah, I think I'm
Councilmember Hamilton?
I think I'm good for any Saturday in March, so I can make that work.
Well, just remember the last week in March is spring break for.
Right. I'm not available the last 2 Saturdays in March,
Yeah. That's the only thing.
Well, no, actually, just the last Saturday in March, I think. I have to look at the calendar, but I can email those separately. As for the advance, well, so we agree, I think, to look at new dates for the neighborhood node. Yeah, Saturday in December is a bad idea too, because of the busyness in general. Perhaps it's less bad to do it on the Saturday before Thanksgiving. I'm certainly open to that. I just threw a date out there. But is there some heads are nodding? So I will. How should I do this procedurally, City Clerk Dixon? Do I need to amend what I've already moved?
Yes, you can make a motion to amend the resolution that's on the table.
Okay, I'd like to move I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution that's on the table to make the 2022 City of Troy advance at the Troy Community Center at 8 a.m. on Saturday, November 19th, 2022, and that we find alternate dates for the neighborhood node walk and talk for Troy City Council.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga, that we approve the motion to amend the previous motion that was on the table as just stated on the record. Discussion on that, on the amendment. All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. So now we have that amended motion on the table. Any further discussion on that? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranga?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. So just for clarification, the advance will be Saturday, November 19th, 2022, pending, as the resolution says, we can always reschedule or schedule additional meetings if necessary, and that we'll get new dates proposed to us for the walk and talk. And just for clarification, City Attorney Bloom, those new dates can't be decided until our next meeting in 2 weeks. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. I'm sure that city management will bring you, the information can be collected in advance of that, as long as you're not replying to all. As long as you're communicating only with the administrative person, you can provide your availability. And then there will be a resolution at the next council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. That concludes regular business this evening. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? We'll recess for 5. We'll go back on the record. Back on the record now. Regular business has been concluded. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here for an item on the consent agenda this evening, all have been approved. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none this evening. So we move on to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have 2 people signed up this evening. First up, again, a reminder of the rules, you're given 3 minutes. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left, and when the light turns red, your time is concluded. And it's not a back and forth conversation. It's an opportunity for you to address council as a whole, and then we are given the opportunity to respond if we like. First up is Vinod Mudalir, which I'm sure I butchered. My apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the council members and everyone for giving me this opportunity. And let me introduce myself. I am Vinod Mudalir, founder and the coach of Michigan Youth Cricket, registered in Troy, Michigan itself. So I'm here to represent the youth development in terms of learning and playing cricket sport. I mean, as everyone knows, sports is an important piece of the health and well-being of the kids. The future is preserving the nature or the sports is important for the future of the kids. Having said that, I presented this before too in November 2021 in the same city council that was held in the Troy Community Center. I also followed up with that. I wrote an email regarding the same. I just want to acknowledge that I did get an email acknowledgement from council member Miss Ellen, and as well as Ann reached out to me. And they led me to the Troy Parks and Recreation. They held that meeting last week. So they asked me to go represent it over there and present the cases to see if the Troy City, Troy Parks and Recreation can help us. So I presented the 3 short-term things with them. One is enable booking of there is the cricket ground adjacent to the Troy Community Center. I requested them to see if booking can be allowed because of the fact that we go there every, it's a drop in and play. That's not helping us by any means because we get into the people already dropping in or they come in 5 hours, 6 hours early. These are practically not possible for especially youth where the parents are there. So this is becoming a daily routine issue. Before we hit the summer, I thought of bringing it to the council and see if anything can be resolved. So also we are open to, I did present it. They referred about Troy baseball boosters. We are open to do whatever the Troy baseball booster type of thing. This is a Michigan Youth Cricket Organization. We're ready to do. It's a nonprofit, and we want to do whatever it takes to get the ground reserved and get this game learning and things going for them. Second thing is cutting the grass low. So that's the third thing is take care of the water puddle. So other cities are doing it. I don't know why Troy won't do it. They're giving reasons. They presented this the same thing. These are the short-term things that they can help us with. The long-term things are the practice lanes. I think I sent some pictures too. Something that for future and floodlights, which gives us there's only one playground. The cricket in Troy altogether. Can you put the floodlights? Extending, that gives an extended time.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is John Zapatowski, who I don't think is here anymore. Probably, I understand. Okay, that concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now again is an opportunity for City Council, City Administration response and reply to this public comment. Anyone from City Administration or Council like to reply? Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Mayor, Thank you so much for coming out. And something that I noticed in our last council meeting, and as I was looking through the recreation offerings for this winter, is it appears there's something around cricket. And I know we can't have a back and forth, and maybe we can talk more afterwards. I don't know if that's your organization that's partnering with the recreation department, but it looks like now there is something with cricket that is a part of the city of Troy recreation. And I'm so delighted to see that. And I just thank you for your efforts. You see it makes a difference. And just glad we can open up those opportunities to children all over the city to learn about cricket, take part in cricket, and enjoy it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crane. Councilmember Hamilton?
Yeah, I would just like to mention, I hope we can discuss this when the budget sessions come up. April 4th is our first budget session, and I know we got American Rescue Plan dollars we're talking about, so I welcome you to come to that and join that discussion, because that's a proper process where when we want to do big ticket things like, add a cricket field or something like that, or major parks and recreation things, that's where it happens. So that's coming up very soon. It's only a month and a half away, so we'll be doing that soon. So I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Anyone else? I want to thank first for you for coming and being so passionate. I know you've worked hard. You've emailed us and you've came previously, and we're certainly aware of the issue and the concerns. Please recognize that the fact that, well, first of all, this pitch is snow covered right now, so we couldn't move it. But it's not, just because we don't talk about it every opportunity, you're not seeing actual physical evidence of things. It is on our radar and on the agenda as we work through it as a number of issues, financial and related to facilities, related to parks and recreation. I also want to thank Councilmember Hoderick and Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt for responding and directing you to the Parks and Recreation Board, which is the proper place. We have a parks plan that has been recently approved, and they need to be hearing this information as well. Often we take our recommendations from that board as to how we address the park needs. In fact, we do take our recommendations from them. We do have the budget discussions coming up, which will cover a plethora of things as well. Keep an eye out for those, but they are definitely it'll be brought up regardless. That's my point. So I don't think we're not thinking about it and talking about it. But again, lots of things pulling at our financial needs right now, but we do know the importance of this potential one. And thank you again for coming. That concludes City Council and City Administration response or reply to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Next up are council referrals. We have none this evening. We move on to reports. Anyone on council have any comments about the reports? Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to point out O2D, and I would like to thank City Administration for providing some of the next steps from our advanced strategy session. In particular, I was pleased to see that the proposed budget will include a new position for city communication and engagement. And also they will be addressing some of the DEI issues and initiatives for the city. So I was very pleased to see that. And also for topic 3, the funding, I know it says it addresses parks and recreation millage, but I think that's more to engage the community is my understanding. It's not that we are proposing that per se. It's more so we're trying to get feedback from the community to determine the best way of providing funding, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So that people don't get alarmed when they see, a proposed millage. So.
No, I think if I may, the main takeaway here is that we really need to build our communication and community engagement team first, and then we can do the engagement necessary to figure out what it is the community wants and would support if there is going to be some kind of new funding option in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you for asking that question, Councilmember Brooks, because I get concerned every time I see that in this report, or it was in the report when they visited us last time, and nothing's been determined at all. That's a potential option of many to how to address certain things. And I don't want the community to think that that's something we're even considering at this point, because we're waiting for much more information. So thank you for that clarification as well. Additional comments on the reports? Two great letters of appreciation in there I think are always important to DPW staff and to the assessing staff. Appreciate the residents sharing that information with us. It's important that we celebrate the successes and the kindness of our city employees at every opportunity. So thank you for sending those. That includes reports this evening, so we move on to council comments. Councilmember Hamilton.
I just want to say happy Valentine's Day to my wife Steph. Sorry we couldn't go out tonight because of council, but that's okay. I'll see her tonight.
Thought she'd be here maybe. Right next to Bethany. Oh wait, she's not here either. Additional comments? We've already commented a lot tonight. All right, I don't have any this evening either. There's nobody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. There's no closed session this evening, so with that, we're adjourned.